chance of you developing bowel cancer is like through the roof if you're not getting at least like 30 grams of fibre a day in your diet.
28% of bowel cancer cases in the UK are caused by eating too little fibre. That's a very bold claim. We are sharing the secret of how to lose weight without being starving, to actually feel better, look better, and keep the weight off. We are talking about macros. Carbs, not the enemy. Some of the vital components that you need in your diet only come from carbs, things like fibre. I personally have never felt better since I have been eating more fats.
I agree.
Is it you the same?
Yeah. The biggest nutritional shift we made was going from 25 grams of protein a day to 110 grams of protein a day. And after a month, she was like, my hair stopped falling out, it feels thicker, my nails feel great, I've got more energy.
It just all makes sense to have a balanced diet.
When you think about it, not only could that have an impact like how you feel in that day, long term it's going to change the trajectory of your health and your life.
How do you even know what percentages of which ones to have?
This is the answer that nobody likes to hear. Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the Body Smart Podcast.
And we are women's weight loss experts. We're on a mission to empower you to take control of your health and your weight for good. And that's why today we are sharing the secret of how to lose weight without being starving, to actually feel better all the way through, look better, and keep the weight off. So we are talking about macros today. And you might have heard about macros before and thought, oh, sounds a bit complicated, or like, that's not for me, that's for people who need to be really lean. But today we're going to explain why you probably need to know a little bit about macros.
Yeah, so breaking your macros down, they are going to be your protein, carbs, and fats. And if we look at them from a calorie standpoint, 1 gram of protein, 4 calories, 1 gram of carbs, 4 calories, 1 gram of fat, 9 calories. And then actually alcohol gets in here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not technically a macro, but we have to count for it somewhere.
Yeah, and 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories.
So what Jamie's just explained there, it's still calories. So
it's still calories, yeah.
I think sometimes there's a bit of confusion. Should I count calories or should I count macros? Mm-hmm. If you're counting macros, you are counting calories.
Yeah, and if you're counting calories, you'll have a macro split. Yeah. So if you were to say, hey, I'm eating 1,500 calories a day, those calories will be broken down into a percentage of macronutrients.
Yeah, and it's already starting to sound complicated.
It is.
So I can understand why people think, do you know what, I'm just going to count my calories and maybe my protein, because people are aware that they need their protein. Mm-hmm. But you've got a great quote, actually, of why this is important.
We have. So it's calories will determine your weight, macronutrients will determine how you look, and micronutrients will determine how you feel.
So calories will get you to a weight loss goal. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. Like, there is unequivocal evidence. If you're in a calorie deficit, you are going to lose weight. It doesn't matter what you eat in that calorie deficit. You could eat McDonald's. Yeah. You could eat a macro split. You could eat low carb. Whatever, you will get your weight loss
If you
goal.
control your calories, you will be able to lose weight. Yeah.
Right. But one of the things that we often hear from women is, I might on the scales, on the numbers, like be at my goal, but my body doesn't look like I thought it would when I got here.
Mm-hmm. And this can come down to your macronutrients in the food that you have. So I just said, I can tell if I've had a week of not being super intentional about maybe my macronutrient splits, so my protein, carbs, and fats, and I've maybe just focused on controlling calories, and I feel like more bloated, I don't look as defined, I just feel a bit more sluggish, and it's often because I've not got enough protein in my diet. I've probably got way less than typical, and it changes how you look. So you can achieve a weight loss goal by just, like we said, focusing on calories, but if you want to achieve a weight loss goal and a body composition goal, you really do want to be looking at the full pie, which is going to be your macronutrients.
Yeah, and importantly, what you just mentioned there is how you're going to feel on the way there and when you get there, because actually understanding what each macro does for you and being able to get a balanced diet is the key to making a diet sustainable and not feeling like it's miserable the whole time. I know I definitely fell into the trap of just worrying about calories when I first tried to lose weight. And I literally used to just choose something based on the calories. So I lived off tin soup for a very long time because it was really low in calories. Yeah. But I felt like crap. And it's no wonder there's not much of anything in a tin of tomato soup, but it's low in calories. So I did lose weight. But it is going to help you with hunger. It's going to help with your metabolic rate. It's going to help with hunger hormones as well and other hormones in your body by getting the right balance of macronutrients. And I think it's, even if you don't want to go down the route of counting your macros, which, as I said, can sound a bit overwhelming and complicated, just having that baseline nutrition knowledge is so empowering, because you can then start to think, I don't need to listen to that faddy diet where it says I have to go low fat, I have to go low carb, because actually my body needs carbs for this purpose or fats for this purpose. So I did just want to briefly explain what each one does in a body.
Yeah.
So if we start with carbs, everyone's favorite.
Easy one. Everyone's favorite. So you've got carbohydrates. Again, 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. Carbs are going to be your primary energy source. That's probably the best way to think about them. There's lots of different types of carbs. You've probably seen good carbs and bad carbs labeled around. Typically what people label as bad carbs are just carbs that you'll digest a lot faster and maybe really high in sugar. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. It just means you will get a higher blood glucose spike and dip off the back of it. And when you've got typically what people would say are your good carbs, like your sweet potatoes, your more complex carbohydrates, they take longer.
Grains.
Yeah, your grains. They take longer for your body to digest and they give you more slow release of energy. But carbs are absolutely vital, in your body. And sometimes you actually see, so moving slight on, when people get too much protein in the diet or they set too much of a high protein goal. And with that comes a sacrifice of maybe carbs. And carbs are your actual energy source. So sometimes getting that split right, so you're not having too much of one macronutrient and getting enough carbs can really help with your energy levels and what's that going to benefit just day-to-day life, your workouts, and carbs taste great. I think most people would say carbohydrates are probably one of their favorite out of the three.
Yeah, even though people do keto and all these low carb diets, I would say as well, it is the macro that you could probably do without, which is why keto is a thing, but you probably won't want to. And it is important to know that it is your body's primary or preferred energy source. So you could do without it, but you are making life more difficult for yourself by doing it. And just to come back to that principle of a calorie deficit, you don't need to deprive yourself of carbs to make your body burn fat. If you're just low in energy, full stop, i.e. in a calorie deficit, you will burn fat. So don't think that the only way to make your body burn in fat store is to not have any other energy from carbs.
Yeah.
That's not the truth.
Definitely. There's actually been, and this is a bit more of a modern thing if you keep up with a lot of the health stuff that goes on nowadays, there's actually been a massive swing against keto and carnivore. And a lot of the people who have done keto are like now, let's do keto plus fruit, or let's do carnivore plus fruit. And that's just because being in a state of ketosis for such a long period of time is not healthy for the body, and actually just giving yourself some carbohydrates from healthy whole food sources like fruit, people are seeing, tremendous benefits from it.
Yeah, definitely. And not to mention some of the vital components that you need in your diet only come from carbs. So things like fiber, for example, you don't get fiber in meat. It is in carbohydrates, and it is vital for your gut health, your mental health. It helps protect against a lot of cancers.
Yeah.
So it is one of those
I think maybe so I can get the stat on this, but I think with fiber and bowel cancer, there's a very clear line between the two. If you're not getting at least 30 grams of fiber a day in your diet, the chance of you having some sort of bowel issue or developing bowel cancer is through the roof. It's astronomical how high it is. And again, you've got to have carbohydrates in your diet, and you've got to be prioritizing fiber and those carbohydrates. So
so carbs, not the enemy for sure. And you would want to have a percentage of them in your diet. Next one is a trending topic at the moment, protein. I think most people who listen to this will understand it's important if you want to lose weight, gain muscle. But why else do you need protein in your body?
Yeah, it's going to be the building blocks for building muscle. It's highly thermic, so it's one of the most thermic macronutrients. That's a fancy way of saying is it just burns more calories from digestion, a lot more. So 20 to 30% of the calories from protein are used in the digestive process. So 100 calories from, say, a steak, 30 of those calories will just be used on digestion. So by having a higher protein diet, you literally burn more calories, which is great to see. Is this the bowel cancer stats?
Yeah, so it says 28% of bowel cancer cases in the UK are caused by eating too little fiber. And that's a very bold claim, caused by. You don't see that much in science. They'll say it's correlated with.
cancerresearchorg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely consider your fiber.
Definitely. But back to protein. Yeah, so highly thermic. So just eating more protein, it's going to burn more calories. But then on top of that, protein is also extremely satiating. So if you don't want to have your stomach grumbling all the time and walk away from a meal and still feel hungry, making sure you get an adequate protein in your meal is really important. Now, we typically we'll ask you to say, hey, go and take our calorie quiz, which you can get on our website, bodysmartfitness.com, or you can just DM us saying quiz, and that'll give you a protein goal. But typically a good rule of thumb for most people is you want to be getting 30 to 50 grams of protein in each meal. Like that's a good rule of thumb. If you're getting that and prioritizing protein first on your plate, you're going to be feeling fuller for longer, you're going to burn more calories, and you're going to get those building blocks of that help with muscle building.
And not just muscle. I think it's really important, especially for women, and especially as we're aging. It is for your bone density and actually every cell in your body. The building blocks of each cell are amino acids, which is what protein breaks down into. So if you want to have good hair, if you want to have strong bones, if you want to have glossy skin, like all the things that we want, then you need to eat enough protein. It's not just about muscle. And I think that does get lost in translation a little bit on social media, and if you are particularly looking into your health and fitness at the moment, you might think, oh yeah, but muscle isn't really one of my goals. Actually, these other things might be, and it is super important.
Yeah, I think I've shared this before. I've had a couple of vegan clients in the past, actually quite a lot, but there's one lady that sticks out in particular, Sarah, and she was getting about 25 grams a day, and we were able to get her intake up to about 110. And after a month, she was like, my hair stopped falling out, it feels thicker, my nails feel great. I've got more energy when I wake up in the morning. I feel less strained. My workouts are feeling the best they have in a decade. So like really big, bold statements. And we could single-handedly put it down to like the biggest nutritional shift we made in her diet was going from 25 grams of protein a day to 110 grams of protein a day.
And if you think about it, the way that protein works in your body, you have what's called an amino acid pool, which is like a live pool of like amino acids, like it says on the tin. But basically there's no storage facility in your body. So like if you aren't constantly eating and topping up that amino acid pool, when your body needs to fix something or like grow a new piece of hair, it's going to have to dip into that amino acid pool. If there isn't what it needs in there for building blocks, it can't do that job. So it can't build you new hair out of nothing. It can't, if it's something that's really important, it will actually go and cannibalize something else in your body and break that down and use the building blocks to rebuild something else. How exhausting is that for your body? Like, it's no wonder you feel knackered if you don't have enough protein. So as well as carbohydrates, protein is really going to help with energy levels.
100%, yeah.
And then the last one is fat, which has had such a bad rap over the years. But I personally have never felt better since I have been eating more fats. And I think you're the same.
Yeah.
I think it is one of those things when you're watching your calories, you do cut back on fats because they're very calorie dense. So you don't get as much food on your plate if you choose a high fat food. But being conscious about why you need them and making sure you get enough fats can make a huge difference to how you feel.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I first started tracking macros, there was the big if it fits your macros. And, typically like lower fat diets were pushed, for like women, it was like 20 or 30 grams a day. For guys, maybe 40 or 50. And you would try to be really mindful because it was all about, right, how can I fit like 2 donuts in and something else? And like, basically like all my fat's coming from like donuts and nothing else. And it wasn't the healthiest way of going about it. But just as that quote says, macronutrients will determine how you look. So you could eat quite not the healthiest of diets, but control your macros and look fantastic. So from the outside, you look great, but you're maybe not the healthiest. But like I've really shifted what my diet looks like over maybe the past 5 years. Instead of using like 1 cal spray, which is focused on low calories, I'm using like olive oil. I eat like an avocado or half an avocado a day, and I'm really focusing on getting healthier fats in my diet, and I actually get way less carbohydrates now. Mainly, I was saying before, I'm just not as active as I used to be. So I used to have much higher carbs, fewer fats, versus now I have much higher fats and fewer carbs, and I actually find like my hunger is much more controlled and I feel better off it as well.
Because one of the things that's a big bonus for fats, yes, they're calorie dense, but they take a long time to digest. And so we're talking like hours to digest. If you have a fatty meal, you aren't going to be reaching for a snack within the next hour. Whereas if you have a high carb meal, there is a chance with your blood sugar spike and crash that you are going to get cravings again fairly soon. So again, another good reason to have fats in your diet, even when you're in a weight loss phase, is it's going to help you with managing your hunger. But in terms of other benefits, you actually need fats to kind of carry vitamins around your body. Quite a lot of important vitamins are only what's called fat soluble, so they won't get to where they need to be if you aren't getting enough fats. Your hormones need fats, your brain need fats, your skin, nails, all those things again need good fats. And so it is about being aware of your longer term health. And what I started this out by saying was, this is how to lose weight, yes, and feel better along the way of losing weight, but also be able to keep the weight off and feel good once you get to that goal. And by understanding like what these different parts of your diet do for you, it just will make sense to have a balanced diet from the beginning and all the way through, because you just feel better. If you didn't know by now, I am a weight loss coach who lost 50 pounds myself, so I know how hard this journey can be. Jamie and I built the Body Smart method to cut through the BS out there and bring together the latest weight loss science to fast track your weight loss. None of the frustrating trial and error that I battled with myself. In fact, over 4,000 women have lost 15 to 60 pounds within 6 months with us, whilst also gaining healthy habits, the knowledge and skills that they'll need to never diet again. We know you've thrown hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at this before and been disappointed endless times. At Body Smart though, we are so confident that you'll get results with our method. We have a full money back guarantee. To find out more, go to bodysmartfitness.com. So how do you even know what percentages of which ones to have then? Because you mentioned there about it used to be low fat would be the thing in a ratio that was recommended.
This is the answer that nobody likes to hear, which is like, it depends, and it can change at different seasons of your life. You've always got to just, like, anyone who gives you a one size fits all approach, like, it's just like approach with caution. Even though there's like through lines of principles that work for near enough most people, the nuances will come from your education and self-awareness around what works for you. So we could say generally apples are really healthy, but I know two people like in my like personal real life that get horrendous like gut issues when they eat an apple, so they don't eat them. Does that mean apples aren't healthy? No, it doesn't. It just means for them it doesn't work. And I think when it comes down to finding a good split of what your macronutrients should be, you can take our calorie quiz and get your calories and protein goal. If you want to go a step further, there's loads of macro calculators out there, and they'll all give you different numbers, and you'll be like, oh, which one's right? It's like they're all a good guess, at best. I mean, it's just about finding like what works for you. So some people find like really high carb diets, like they crash all the time, they don't feel great. Maybe they've got some blood sugar issues and having lots of carbs doesn't make them feel good. So they have a higher fat diet and they feel great on that. And it does take a little bit of experimenting to find out what works best for you when it comes to macros, which is not what anyone wants to hear. Everyone who's listening is like, Jay, tell me what to do. Give me this number and this percentage and this. But that's unfortunately just...
It is more trial and error. And I would say particularly with the carb and fat split, because for weight loss, there is strong research to suggest that we probably want to be aiming for 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilo for weight loss and lean muscle retention. So if you take, I know I need to be in a calorie deficit, so that gives me my number of calories. I know I want to be aiming for this much protein.
Yeah.
That's going to take a number of calories out of what's available. And then you've got what's left. How do I split that between carbs and fats? And that's the bit where we're saying, play around with it. But actually for most people, at the beginning of your weight loss journey, don't worry about it. Just worry about getting your calories on point, getting your protein on point, without overcomplicating it. When you've got that and you've got a good rhythm and you know how you can hit your calories regularly, you can get enough protein, then you can start to play around and look at where am I getting the rest of my calories from?
100%. Well, so you can observe. So let's say you get your calorie and protein goal, which are going to be, if you just look at it, instead of seeing it like it's a calories and protein, like there's protein, carbs and fats that all make up calories. So you just count them one of the macronutrients. So if you do calories and protein, what you'll naturally see off the food choices you're making, if you look in MyFitnessPal, you go on the nutrients page, you'll see like, hey, I hit my calories, I hit my protein, but you'll see where your fats are, and you'll see where your carbs are, and you can just look back over a week and observe it. Hey, what days did I have a high carb day? What days did I have a low fat day? How did I feel on those days? And you can start to ask yourself those questions and then make more informed decisions, because getting on top of your nutrition is basically a continual process of doing that. And when you just start to get like some go-to meals or some go-to foods, and you know they make you feel your best, look your best, and manage your weight the best. And it's like it's just that continual cycle, and it's a skill to develop and learn. But like having that awareness and just looking at it objectively, it's super empowering. It really, really is.
It definitely is. And I think once you've got that baseline knowledge, it is quite easy to tap into the difference of how it feels. Because I know you said earlier about if you're not eating enough protein, you can physically see it. And that is because of just the way your body stores carbohydrates and glycogen in your muscles as well. But for me, it's how I feel. So if I don't eat enough protein, that tends to translate into carbs. And I genuinely just get like a bit sicky all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to eat protein because I feel a bit sick, but I know if I make my next meal more protein rich, it just goes away.
Yeah.
And when you start to tune into your body and understand why, it does make those choices easier. Even when you don't really want to, I don't really fancy chicken or whatever. But yeah, but I don't want to feel sick either.
Yeah.
And so if you can get that like trial and error phase under wraps, and even going as far as writing it down in a diary, I know it sounds a little bit extreme, but if you haven't got a coach or someone that you can discuss these things with, actually writing down your reflections on how your food made you feel that day is really enlightening, because we don't often think about it. We just eat, get on with our day, next day comes, do it again.
Which, when you think about it, is like a wild concept, and because like your food is gonna, control maybe like how you're feeling that day. Then it's gonna have a big impact on how you start to look, and then long term is gonna have a massive impact on like disease and vitality for all of us. And the food choices that you can make, like most people eat like 10 of the same meals like every month. You know what I mean? Just like rotate them in some ways. So like starting to make more educated, informed decisions around how you could change those meals around or change your shop just like marginally. Like not only could that have an impact like today and tomorrow and next week, but could actually change the trajectory of like your health and your life as you sort of move on. So it is huge, and it seems like it's a lot, but for something that you do every day, like the level of importance that I see it as is like pretty high. Like it's a skill worth investing in.
It is, and we were talking about this earlier. There's some skills that you learn or knowledge that you learn, and once you know it, you can't unknow it. And nutrition is one of those things. Like once you understand the basics of macros, like we've talked about today, and you've kind of figured out what your food plan generally looks like and how that looks in terms of macros, that's knowledge that you now have.
Yeah.
And you can tap back into that in 2 months' time, 2 years' time, 20 years' time, still there. And it can seem like this is a whole load of gobbledygook when you start looking at it and you think, God, I don't want to be...
Gobbledygook.
Yeah.
I've not heard that in forever.
I don't want to be minimizing all my food to numbers. But if you can just do it for a short period of time, it really does pay off. The other thing that I wanted to raise, and I did kind of talk about this in the introduction, is it is proven that people who consistently track their macros lose more weight and keep it off. There is a really strong study that showed that after 6 months, 54% of people who tracked their food had lost 5% of their body weight, whereas the people who didn't track their food, only 15% had lost that body weight. And so it is one of those tools that allows you to just see what's going on, understand what's going on, and get to your goals and make those tweaks. We talk about tracking all the time. And like you said, it could be calories. For a lot of people, you probably recorded your calories or like counted calories before. It could just be protein, or it could be looking also at your carbs and fats. But it's the tracking that is so powerful.
And the awareness and the mindfulness about it. Like when you start, like, and I'm not surprised, like that's the impact that tracking your macros is. Because when you look at a food, at your plate of food, if you've got these numbers in mind of like, right, I've got to get this much protein per day, this many carbs, this many fats, all right, that can feel like that's a lot of decisions to make, and it's a bit exhausting. It's why we always advise to like track in advance, or track before you eat, or track the day before or the week before. But it really just allows you to start being so much more mindful about the plates that you build. And then once you just, like anything, like it's like starting a new job, super overwhelming to begin with. Like, don't know anyone in the office. This is really weird. Got to learn all these new systems, all these new skills. A month down the line, you're like, oh, it's pretty fine. 3 months in, it's like you've been there a year. It is for like a lot of people. And it's the same with like tracking food. Like you can look at macros, super overwhelming in the beginning, takes a lot of effort and energy, but then all of a sudden it just feels a lot more natural. You know what you do and you know how to build your plates. And the success you're going to see off that is was wild. And I think that the huge part is, that made a loud noise. The huge part is it's not forever. Like I don't stress about food at all. And I track food every day for 3 years. I don't think you need to do it for that long. I just did at that time in my life. But like once you know it, it's like you know it. And I don't know what it's like for you, but like so many of the clients I've spoken to, they're like, oh yeah, it's just second nature now. Like they're not stressed about food. They know how to manage the weight. They look great. They go out to meals. They've got plans and strategies about how they deal with it. They know how to pull back and push forward and save calories, and it doesn't stress them out. It's just like, it's just become second nature. And the benefits of like, imagine like if you've stressed about food your whole life and now you don't stress about food, that it can almost feel like a reality that doesn't exist, but it does. And it's the great thing about skills is that they can be learned, they can be taught, and they just take sets and reps like in the gym. And once you know it, you know it.
Yeah, and there are tools as well that you can kind of tap into. So we're talking today about tracking your macros in terms of like old school bodybuilder, write down your grams. But that isn't
That's
the
what
only
I did,
way.
you know, when I started. Like, because I think my fitness pal existed, but people didn't do it. And it was pencil and paper, looking at the back, working out to pay 100 grams. So you wouldn't explore for as many foods back then because
you couldn't just search them.
There's so much effort, you know what I mean? To just like it literally was so much effort to try and include the different food.
Yeah.
So yeah, my fitness pal was like a godsend for being able to like, right, I'll have a Snickers or factor something else in.
Yeah. And so there are ways that you can literally work out like on paper how many grams you should have of each thing. But you can just scan your packets on MyFitnessPal now.
You can.
And that's a bit of an easier way around. But there are also, you know, if you're not ready to go that far down the route, but you want to get like a feel of like how much fats and protein and carbs am I eating, there are other ways that you can do it just to kind of increase your awareness. And a really great resource that I love is if you just search precision nutrition, carbs, fats and protein infographic, you'll get that up. That's one of the educational courses that we get all of our coaches to go on. But it will just give you a visual of like, these foods are high in protein, these foods are high in fat, these foods are high in carbs. I'm not saying memorize the sheet, but if you look at it, you'll have a vague idea of like, where are you getting a lot of your calories from in your diet? And you can just start to be familiar of which columns you're getting a lot from, which ones maybe you need to give a bit more attention to. That could be where you start. That could be your level of macros for now. And that could, for some people, that can make a big difference, just having that basic awareness.
Yeah, it can make, I think it'll make a considerable difference. Like it really, really can.
Yeah. And the other thing as well, Precision Nutrition, I am a big fan of them simplifying things like this. They have a hand portion guide. So again, if you're not down with tracking every single gram you eat, but you want to improve how you feel, you want to maybe get a bit leaner, but not actually have to, you know, go on a weight loss journey per se, then they use your hand as a very always their tool. Yeah. So a portion of protein, they would say, is the palm of your hand. So if you thought of like a piece of meat that was that thick and that size, that would be a portion of protein. A portion of carbs would be a cupped handful. So like if you poured some oats into your hand, that would be a portion of carbs. And then you've got a portion of fats, which is only the size of your thumb, which is always disappointing when you cut out a piece of cheese. But that can also...
Probably for the best, though.
Yeah, and because that calorie density. But that just helps you, again, just look at your plate and be like, is this a balanced plate? If I know that I'm roughly aiming for, you know, this percentage of protein... Is that reflected in what I'm eating? Yeah. So there are lots of different ways to approach this to be able to apply that knowledge to your life without it feeling like you have to go extreme.
Yeah, I agree.
We do get a lot of questions on Instagram. Well, you do. I don't. when we put up like ask me anything or ask me a question around, there's a bit of confusion with calories and macros. Like people wondering if they're tracking macros, do they need to hit their calories as well, or like is it more important to hit their macro goals and not worry about the calories?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's so calories are always going to be king for fat loss. So sometimes people are like, oh, should I still try and hit my protein goal if I've already hit my calories? Like that's a typical question that you'll get. And it's like, if the main goal is fat loss, then no, you'd want to stay within your calories. But if if that's repeatedly happening, that's always a reflection exercise of like, right, you're missing your protein goal by like 50% every day. Like you need to start building your meals with protein first. So again, it's like one day is in the grand scheme of things isn't going to make or break what happens. You know, if you miss your protein goal by a day or two, it's not the end of the world. And if you're managing your calories, that's still going to be king for fat loss. However, if you then start to notice on those days that you're missing your protein goal, hunger's going through the roof, recovery feels worse, then the next day maybe you're overeating on calories, that's where it can become a bit of a net negative. And maybe that extra 50 grams of protein, which would have been 200 calories, maybe that would have been a better choice if you're starting to notice that knock-on effect. But the ultimate of that would just be to get your protein in first. So again, it's all awareness and trial and error. And like so many of our clients, you're feeling like you need to be a perfectionist. Everything needs to line up perfectly every single day. It's not a reality. Like we've missed targets plenty of times, all the time when we've been tracking. But it's about overall consistency and as being as close to your numbers as you can.
And like you said, learning from those days where it doesn't add up and seeing what do I need to do differently next time. The other one that comes up quite often if somebody is keeping an eye on their carbs is the numbers don't stack up at the end of the day. And a big reason for this is that because of the keto trend, there's a thing called net carbs in America. They don't do it in the UK. But for some reason, I don't know if it's the FDA or whoever it is that signed this off, they're like, yeah, you don't need to count certain types of carbs, just don't put them on the packet. It's just bizarre. It's because of the way certain types of fiber get processed in your body. Technically, you just poop them out. So you don't get any calories out from them. But it's just an overcomplication. And if that's something that's happening to you, what I would say is look at your processed food intake. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, particularly ones that are low carb or like low calorie, that's probably the culprit.
Yeah.
And actually the fix there is maybe look at what whole food options could you get instead, because you still get the same benefit of, yes, the fiber that goes through your body and doesn't actually contribute calories that you're going to use, but you're also going to get all that micronutrient density that we talked about earlier.
And you can also get like another thing on tracking here. Like I used to get a lot of clients like, hey, I've hit my calories, but I've not hit any of my macros. And that's normally just a cue of like the data you're inputting is off. So you could go and look at certain foods and be like, oh, that chicken breast is 200 calories, 0 protein, 0 carbs, 0
in
fat.
The database.
Yeah. So you've just that's why using the verified stuff is a great sort of cue of like making sure you're getting stuff that's actually going to have the proper data in.
Yeah. But again, just to bring it back to your main goal, if your main goal is weight loss,
calories are
don't stress too much.
Yeah.
If you think you should have had the right number of carbs at the end of the day, but your calories are right, then stick
and
with
also
that.
like, and I have done this. If you've got like 50 grams of protein to hit at the end of the day and you've got no carbs or fat, you're like, right, so I've got to eat 200 calories of pure protein.
It's like, such a horrible feeling.
Yeah, well, it's just pure egg whites. Or maybe like turkey, you know what I mean? Turkey's probably like one of like the leanest sort of meats. Or you eating like cod or
like a tin of tuna.
Yeah, and I've done that. I've just eaten like a pack of prawns or something instead. You know, just like, but it's not. You're not sat there at like 9 o'clock at night like, oh, this is such an enjoyable way to eat my food. You know what I mean? But like sometimes I'm like, sometimes it's worth doing that. Just to be like, this sucks. I'm going to plan better so it doesn't happen again. And you can actually enjoy your food a little bit more.
Yeah. Just so you know, if you were my client, I wouldn't tell you to do that. I would tell you to just eat a bit more protein tomorrow.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it's one of them. It's not like, you know, we're not expecting anyone to go and, you know, cook up 250 grams of protein and egg whites at the end of the night. But I have done that in the past and it's not an enjoyable experience. And it makes you be like, right, I didn't get any protein in my breakfast yesterday. That's why. Let's just like make tomorrow's breakfast now and make sure that I'm set for the day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully that has cleared up some of the mystique around macros and it isn't quite as intimidating as maybe you might have thought. It doesn't need to be, and it doesn't need to be this like big mathematical equation at the end of every day. But what I will say is if you understand it and you can balance your diet with each macro and like do a bit of trial and error, you will look better and you will feel better and losing weight will be easier.
Are you ready to lose 30 to 60 pounds in under 6 months without restrictive diets, countless hours exercising or any guesswork? Well, we help women over 30 do exactly that. Lose weight guaranteed. And 5 to 10 pounds a month is the average weight loss. And that's not a cherry pick statistic. That is the average. Your weight loss results are 100% guaranteed. You will lose unwanted body fat. So apply at bodysmartfitness.com. That's bodysmartfitness.com, but only if you're a woman over 30 and want to lose 30 to 60 pounds.